However, there is a better reason for my wearing a black tie. I was at the memorial service for Lord Brooke of Sutton Mandeville earlier on today. He was a distinguished Northern Ireland secretary and begetter of the peace process, who would no doubt be interested in today's news that the 2-year-long gridlock preventing the reinstatement of Northern Ireland's devolved government finally seems to have been cleared after a private meeting of senior Democratic Unionist Party officials endorsed the leader, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson's deal to restore power sharing. Despite the apparent endorsement, Sir Geoffrey told colleagues that the deal was not perfect, but was a good outcome for the region, and that unionists will continue to fight for further changes. So are today's developments on the seemingly never-ending gridlock in Northern Ireland conserving the union or compromising it? And could a power-sharing agreement led by Sinn Féin stand the test of time? Well, there's nobody better to talk to this with than the former First Minister of Northern Ireland and former leader of the DUP, Arlene Foster. Arlene, thank you very much for coming in. How much do you know as yet about what is in the command paper? There have been some leaks, but it sounds quite positive so far.
I think it does sound quite positive. The first thing I want to say to you, Jacob, is like so many other things, we wouldn't start from here if we had a choice. You know as well as I do that the protocol, the then Windsor framework, sought to bring about a difference between trade in Great Britain and in Northern Ireland, barriers between the two. And of course, if you live and work in Northern Ireland, we do all of our business, most of our business, with the rest of the United Kingdom. So those supply chains are very, very important to us. And what the DUP has been saying and what they've been negotiating about over this past 2 years has been about the internal market of the United Kingdom, restoring the internal market of the United Kingdom, fulfilling the Act of Union, if you like, to have that free trade moving about. So it'll be very interesting tomorrow to see the command paper, to see what's in it in relation to trade, but also in relation to all of the other parts around it as well. What does it say about the union, for example? What does it say about strengthening the union? Because we know that DUP members have been very strong on that during this past 2 years. So it comes out tomorrow, and I think that will give everybody a chance to see what has been achieved.
And there are other risks, aren't there? We were discussing on this programme just a week or so ago the issue of migration and whether Northern Ireland's subject to EU rules and whether that then becomes a route for illegal migration into the UK if we manage to stop the small boats.
And that's a real problem because immigration's becoming a real issue in the Republic of Ireland. Small towns across the Republic are finding it very difficult to cope at this present moment in time. And therefore, I think the government needs to be very alert to that when we're talking about the Rwanda bill. And as you know, that passed its second reading in the Lords just last night. And so we will come to discuss the detail of that in the Lords very soon. And I'm very much looking forward to getting clarity from the government around immigration. They say that this deal, the Windsor Framework, does not actually apply to immigration. Others, nationalists in particular, would argue differently. And
the issue with power sharing, this is going to be the first time that Sinn Féin has provided the First Minister. How uncomfortable does that make unionists, who still obviously have a majority in terms of the overall population of wanting to remain in the Union, but having an avowedly Republican party having the First Ministership?
So if you look at the numbers in Stormont, there's still a unionist majority, but they have the largest party, so that gives them the right to have the First Minister. But what I think viewers may be interested in is that it's a joint office. So the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister have exactly the same powers. It was to give balance, to have somebody from the nationalist community, and they've been in the Deputy First Minister position for some time now, and from the unionist community as well. So she cannot take decisions, and I know this because I was in the First Minister's office. You cannot take decisions as First Minister unless the Deputy First Minister agrees with you. So it's a very unique set of circumstances. It's a mandatory coalition. So whilst I think symbolically people will be uncomfortable with it because of who she represents and their past with a particular terrorist organisation, the IRA, I think in reality, actually, she doesn't have any more power than whoever the DUP decide to put in as Deputy First Minister.
And so that can work. And then are the changes that we think are going to happen real? Are they agreed with the EU, as far as we know, to ensure that they accept this and we don't find that they then say, well, actually, you've got to change it again? Because part of the problem with the withdrawal agreement is that Northern Ireland remains in part subject to EU law.
Well, I think it's very interesting today, Jacob, and you will have noticed this as well. There was a meeting of the Joint Committee, which is the committee between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And they agreed there that they would actually look at the number of goods that were in the not at risk category, and they would widen that. That means that those goods can come into Northern Ireland. They're not at risk of going into the European Union. And that's good news. And that's a change. And that's, I think, something that people didn't see coming. So it'll be very interesting to see what else there is in the command paper tomorrow in relation to that.
And that's really important because there were many goods not in the not at risk category that it seemed ridiculous that they were never going to go into the Republic of Ireland. And it seemed as if the EU was being deliberately difficult. If there's a change of tone there, that begins to unlock all sorts of things.
I think that's right. And you and I know that the Brexit negotiations were incredibly difficult. The European Union and, regrettably, Ireland used them to actually batter the UK for having the temerity to leave the European Union. And you'll remember as well an EU official saying that Northern Ireland was the price of Brexit. Yes. So, you know, we've been trying to deal with this over a long period of time. It shouldn't have happened, of course, Jacob. And in Northern Ireland, there is a long-term understanding that you don't have something that isn't agreed by the majority of unionists and the majority of nationalists. The protocol was never accepted by all of unionism.
Yes.
So that has been a huge problem. And I hope we've learned from this that we need to have the majority of unionism and the majority of nationalism to make it work in Northern Ireland.
But the one thing Eurosceptics are worried about is that the price for this may be that we don't diverge, and that not just does Northern Ireland not diverge, but the whole of the UK doesn't diverge. That seems to me to be a very high price, if that's what it turns out to be.
No, I don't understand that is the price. I understand that there isn't going to be dynamic alignment. I don't think that's in the deal. I don't think it's going to be there tomorrow. And I know people are concerned about that here in Great Britain. For us in Northern Ireland, we want to see the internal market of the UK work. That's the primacy for us. And I think tomorrow we're going to see that in the command paper.
Well, I think this is good news if Northern Ireland is back in its proper place as full a member of the United Kingdom as Somerset is. And you know that I can't ever say more than that. But thank you, Arlene.